Let's talk about the world you're about to enter. And in this chapter, you're going to learn about powerful dynamics that will affect a lot of things and how those dynamics have changed on this road ahead of you in the last 30, 40, and 50 years, and how they impact you now. The lesson here, you can't play effectively with yesterday's tactics, and why it's so urgent that you kind of get it, the big picture, so you can look at the road in front of you more strategically. From college, you've got to prepare for life after college while you're in college. And know you must be really engaged in a job search from the moment you step on campuses. Most students start this process way too late, and that's very, very costly. I say your first semester of your freshman year, you gotta get after this. And if you're an early career, you've got to start talking about, how do I maintain near continuous employment over the arc of my career and build a superb reputation as you leave your 20s. You want to be notable. It's not what you say about yourself, it's what others say when you're not there. And you've got to always be networking and do it in a way where you can leverage that network in the future. And you want to be able to expand your knowledge, not only what your employer is teaching you, but beyond that. What are you doing to move way beyond that to pull up your professional skills in general? And it's a process of lifelong learning. This is not a time for balance. It's full speed ahead. You got to nail your 20s. So let's get started. And there's a few things that I want you to go ahead and make sure you do. Number one, you need to be on LinkedIn. I think pretty much most people that start this course, they are. But if not, you got to get on it. You've got to have a nice professional presence. And you need to learn more about LinkedIn than just how to post, some basic information. Number two, I want you to install Grammarly. It's a free version of the software, and it's going to better your written word. So it's beyond spell check. It's about usage and grammar, and it can catch some dumb mistakes you might be making when you're doing correspondence, and that'll make you look more professional. And three, I want you to install the US Today app on your phone. It's a good news app, and it's free. You need to know what's going on in the world. Successful people are well-informed people, and that's you. I'm going to give you more steps as we move forward over time, but my plea right now is please don't fall behind. I hope you're noting next actions, that you're going to go ahead and work on your end. I just gave you 3 of them. This is not a listen-only course. This is a how-to course. Make a little bit of awareness, and then how to go from here. At least a suggestion. There's more than one way to go ahead and make things happen. And this is a listen and do program, because that's where growth happens. If you want to create significant impact in your life, in your career, in your financial future, you need to begin now. And you're going to learn why as we get deeper into the course, but this is a time to start driving change. This is not just a listen and think about it. This is a time for you to be the catalyst to make positive things happen in your career. Now, I want to put the cards on the table, and I've said this before. I'm not a financial advisor. I facilitate learning. And at the appropriate time, you need to engage a qualified financial professional on investments and money. But this is about how you get started in long-term dynamics, and you can augment this. Remember, this is a foundational class that you'll be putting other information on top of, including getting good guidance where you need it. Now, this is really important. If you're multitasking, come back and listen to me. We work in order to live, not live in order to work. If you take a look at most people's calendars, you might say, well, most people have this backwards. Well, you need to go ahead and talk about, what you're going to do in order to, work is going to be the fuel of having the life you want. This is not a course about money, although we're going to talk about money. This is not a course about career, although we're going to cover that significantly as well. Rather, this is a course about getting you to freedom. And let me put my cards on the table. You got to break away from the status quo. If you're moving along with the herd, if you're looking to your left and right, and you're seeing what your friends are doing and say, I'm doing fine, you're not, because the status quo isn't working. I'll give you a vivid example about this. There's a crisis in America, and no one seems to be talking about it. And it's huge. It lies in two significant areas that affect you. First, it's career onboarding. You're going from campus to career. And then on the other end of career, there's career offboarding, where you're going from your working years to your retirement years, and hopefully that's encompassing financial freedom. So let's talk about career onboarding. 2.2 million students leave high school and start in college every year in America. Out of those students, 40% nationally get a 4-year degree in 4 years. 60% get that 4-year degree in 6 years or less. Well, why'd they go? Well, they went in order to get a better job and make more money. Okay, so let's take a look at that 60% of newly minted bachelors. Half got a job that required a degree. And the other half starts off, at least initially, unemployed or underemployed. This is horrible. This has been happening for the last 2 decades. Do you hear the alarm bells going on campuses across the nation? No. Higher education has pretty much accepted the status quo. I'm not, and you shouldn't either. And then there's career offboarding. Okay, I've worked 40, 45 years. You're going to find for most there's trouble ahead. You'll learn that most people don't have a plan. They've underfunded retirement, and I'm being generous here by more than 50%. It's really worse than that. They don't have a budget, and they squander the early years, which could have been so helpful. And then they wake up in their 40s, and they're trying to put their life together on that track and play catch-up, and that's very, very hard. We're going to explore this deeply as we get further into this course, but we want you to go ahead and leave here and use that as the catalyst for you not making the mistakes that the baby boomers have made. The world you're entering is a lot different. There's some key changes from a generation ago or from 2 generations ago. Let me put my cards on the table. I don't buy into this Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, millennial. Forget about it. I'm a simple guy. You've got you, and then you've got your parents. That's 1 generation ago. Then you got your grandparents. That's 2 generations ago. So things have evolved incredibly different from where your grandparents were working to the stage that you're about to take. So let me talk about 4 key changes. 1, funding for higher education. State universities have moved from publicly funded to publicly assisted. Small nuance, small word change, but it's really significant. See, when I went to Ohio University in the early 70s, 70% of the cost of my education was borne by the taxpayer. That was state-funded universities. Now it's under 20% is funded by the taxpayer. Who pays the difference? You do. And that can have ramifications as you start your life relative to debt and how you're going to manage that and go forward. Number 2, defined benefits have moved to defined contributions. Defined benefits were pensions. When I left school in 1975, you went to work for a big employer, you got a pension. You had this professionally managed, and it was all set up and ready to go. Well, in 1978, the 401k was born. And initially, it was to supplement pensions. And then employers looked and said, wait a minute, we got this pending liability. You mean I've got to pay this employee for the rest of their lives and after they retire and they're living longer? How about if I push them to the 401k? And that's exactly what they did. Pensions are out the door, and now it's up to you. Pensions are more prevalent in government jobs, state and federal jobs, local government. It's a lot more pervasive. However, many of those programs are underfunded. So there's trouble on the tracks for people that are even getting those as well. You've got to understand these dynamics. This began over 40 years ago, and you're going to go ahead and learn that my generation is struggling. The baby boomers, we were the guinea pigs for this 401k generation, and we didn't do a real good job managing it. Okay, so it's logical to say, did the educational system adjust to this reality? Now we've got all this evidence in it, how people have done. No, they didn't. But you have to, because this is your moment. And you need to get it right. And I'm so glad you're in this course, because we're going to help you a ton from that perspective. The third big change, the number of jobs you're going to have. So 2 generations ago, your grandparents probably had 1 to 2 jobs. And jobs were careers. The baby boom, my generation, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, will have between 10 and 11 jobs. We're in the process of retiring. That's why it's an estimate. But what about your generation? And I was struggling to find information. I reached out to a friend of mine, Kelly Kay. He's a managing partner for Heidrick & Struggles. They're a global executive search and strategy firm. He says, listen to these words, the emerging generation will have at least 17 plus jobs. So jobs are no longer, if you do the math, careers, they're 2 to 4 year career stepping stones. And employer loyalty and employee loyalty is vanishing, both sides of the equation. So what does this mean for you? Well, I'll tell you what you need. You need to be great at job search. And then you have to also understand wealth creation in the midst of performing in your career. And even if you stay for a career with an employer or a near career with an employer, you're going to go ahead and navigate internally every 2 to 4 years. They'll move you from one assignment to another. So this is doing job search within your organization. Still, those job search skills are critical. And the fourth big dynamic, the world has changed incredibly because it's a level playing field. Thomas Friedman wrote in his book, The World is Flat, terrific read, I suggest it. Because of the interconnection that companies have via the internet and supply chain efficiencies, and the fact that wages are different, some nations to build a product, it's pennies on the dollar, where we're dollars on the dollar here. That has a ramification relative to competitiveness and disparate regulations. You know, we don't pollute in the United States. Many countries are kind of lax on that. And when you're lax on it, you again can manufacture goods and services at a lower rate. This is the most competitive juggernaut in the history of America. And that's the stage you're entering. So what's all this mean? You can't play by yesterday's rules. You got to play under today's rules and be mindful of these future dynamics. So when I started all this research, I asked myself a pretty significant question. Can a normal person with a normal career, with average performance, that they want balance in their life, they don't want to travel, they don't want to work obscene amount of hours, they want to break and coach their daughter's soccer team. Can that person get to financial independence in this nearly pensionless world? Here's the good news. The answer is yes, if you don't squander your 20s. That's why early on, you've got to go ahead and get moving in the right direction. Now, I speak at a lot of college campuses, and I also speak at employers generally focused on early employees, same age as you, 18 to 29. And the target market, that target market is you. And I usually start with a pretty simple question. I ask them, why are you here and what do you want? And when I do this on college campuses, I might have 180 in the room. Why are you here? What do you want? If you're a senior, you spend 16 years on formal education, not counting kindergarten and preschool. So it's only logical you'd have a good answer for this. You know what I get? Crickets. And over time with some coaching, I get answers like, I want to get a good job. I want to make my parents happy and proud. I want to pay off these damn student loans. I want to do something that I'm passionate about. I want to become a fill in the blank. And if your early career, you've got ambitions that this is my dream, my professional dream. This is what I want to do. But I share those answers aren't good enough. because I want you to get to a more strategic plane so you can have higher impact that will adjust the trajectories, both in career and finance, over the arc of your career. But I've got an answer to the question. And I tell you something, I'm in front of tens of thousands of students, and no one's ever come up to me and said, that's not me. That's not it. No one's written me an email afterwards. So I'm on pretty solid ground that this is why you go to college. And I think I can help you move this to a more strategic view from this moment forward, is why I'm spending so much time on this. So I want you to answer this question in your head as you take this online class. Why are you here? What do you want? Go ahead and pause this and put the answer in your head, and then come back and let's get moving. So here it is. You want to create a lifestyle that makes you feel happy, successful, fulfilled, and proud. So that's like, what do you do for a living? Who do you do it for? What's your title? Where do you live? What do you drive? How do you pursue your faith? How do you hang out with family and friends? How do you pursue hobbies? All of this stuff. You want to create a lifestyle that makes you feel happy, successful, fulfilled, and proud. And the definition of that is unique to everybody. Some people have more modest ambitions. Some people have more grand ambitions. That's your choice. 2, you're going to want to have that lifestyle debt-free over time. Let me give you some data. The average person, when they walk into a bank or a mortgage broker, and they are trying to get a home financed, and that's part of the American dream. Everybody wants to get their own home. The bank will let you have 28%, a loan payment that's 28% of your income. And the reason they do that is because you have to have enough money to pay your other bills, utilities, insurance, have some fun money, blah, 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 in order for you to be a good lender over time, and they'll get all their money back. So that's about 28%. The average American spends about 20% of their income on non-mortgage debt. So that's big ones are student loans, automobiles, financing, and then our friends at Visa and MasterCard. Okay, so 28 and 20. Let's call it 30% in round numbers. 30 and 20. Hey, Alan, is what you're telling me, if I can navigate over time to debt-free, that lifestyle that makes me feel happy, successful, fulfilled, and proud, that lifestyle is 50% off? It's half off? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Number 3, you want to build enough income-producing assets. Probably starts with your 401k at work that throw off enough cash one day that exceeds the cost of you being you. You know what we call that? Freedom. And finally, you want to do so when you still have your health and mobility. A big difference between doing this at 85 and getting this done at 55. 85, you probably want to stay close to home. 55, you want to see the world and pursue whatever passion you want. You'll have enough discretionary time and discretionary money to follow your heart's desire. And you want to know why I know that's what you want? Because that's what everybody wants. But you couldn't tell me when we started off. Worse still, all the education you've had, you were never told. You have to have an eye on your long-term outcome early on, and then make sure you're on track with what you're doing today and build towards that outcome. So if that's what you want, how do you get there? Well, you want to get a great job. It's a logical step, or maybe a first step in an amazing career. And to do that, you want to get multiple job offers every time you go out and do a search. Because if you have choices, you have a better shot at picking the best new stepping stone. Then you want to go ahead and onboard efficiently, so you want to thrive and advance in that new role. And we can help you with all of this. You want to be able to replace that job efficiently if need be. So like you got laid off, or I want to get the hell out of here, but I don't want to get caught in the process. We'll help you with that. You want to be wise with the money you earn, and you're going to find most Americans aren't. And then finally, you want to build towards financial independence with a plan that you really understand. Because if you understand it, you got a better shot of staying with it. And also, as you see conflicting goals come in, temptations, it's easier to push those away because you're on track to a plan that you're really excited about. So as with onboarding, campus to career offboarding is broken. So you know what my generation wants? Entering retirement, the baby boom? We'd love a do-over button. And you know, that if you hit it, you know, if I'd only known back then what I know now, I'd have done things slightly differently. Listen to that, slightly differently. And if I'd done that consistently, I'd have a much greater outcome at this stage. Trouble is, the do-over button doesn't exist. But if it did, and one was to touch it, where would that put them? It would put them right where you are. So I want you to use the baby boom, and we're going to do this as we dig in through the rest of this work, as a case study. And then you'll make a decision. Do you want to go that way? That's the status quo. Or do you want to break out and be a little abnormal, or I call it better, exceptional, to go ahead and put you on a better trajectory and be more successful in the end? So what's this mean to you? You have to have a plan. You have to start early. And this course can help you with that. So I don't know how to talk about personal finance without talking about employment. You know, usually personal finance says do this and don't do that. And the gurus talk like that, the big gurus that have sold millions and millions of books on this. But the fact is, if you don't maintain your employment and grow your earnings, there's nowhere to invest. The money isn't there. Dave Ramsey, big fan of his work, he says your most powerful wealth building tool is your income, and that's the truth. So how do you go ahead and harness the power of your income and get great outcomes? And relative to employment, I don't know how to talk about employment without talking about finance. Let's say you get laid off. And usually that happens abruptly. There's not a lot of notice. And you're living kind of paycheck to paycheck. Over 70% of Americans do that. And you don't have a big savings account. You don't have a cash buffer. We call that an emergency account. We'll get into that later. And then all of a sudden, you're in this job hunt, and it's panic. I've got to get something. And somebody offers you a job that generally you wouldn't have taken it. But you know something? You're going to take it now because you're kind of desperate. And then when you go ahead in 2 years from now, someone's looking at your resume, it doesn't look as good as it could. Do you want to know why this is so important to you now? And this is really important to you now. It's because you're entering a career inflection point. From college, even from entry level, but I'm going to use college as an example. You're going from being a broke college student, heck, everyone's broke on a college campus. And by comparison, when you get your first job, there's this enormous personal financial inflection point. How you manage this inflection point is critical to your long-term success. We're going to coach you through what to do so you do this with your eyes open. Now, your 20-something years are highly consequential. I love the work of Meg Jay. In fact, you can look at her TED Talk. She also has a great book, The Defining Decade. But her TED Talk, millions and millions of people have listened to it. And she talks about, you talk to somebody, later in their career, and you're talking about their success, and it points back to what happened in their 20s kind of set everything on the right track. And there's 3 things that are happening in your 20s. Biologically, your brain is going through its second and final growth spurt. Here's the cliff notes on that. If you want to change something about yourself, change it now. It's easier to change in your 20s than in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You're not changing much then. Professionally, you've got to go ahead and put yourself on the map. You've got to become famous for something. You got to build that great reputation that we talked about. And financially, the power of compound interest. And we're going to go ahead and work on that when we get into the personal finance sections and building wealth. But the fact is, starting early is a huge advantage. Now, true happiness is not just about money and wealth. It's a combination of things. Your faith, your health, family and friends, romance, hobbies and interests, and oh yeah, your career and your personal finances and wealth creation. Again, this class is about teaching you advantages, both in employment and career, and personal finance and wealth. It's a path. It helps you to chart a path that will help you get to your freedom. I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to dig into this with you, and I'll see you next time.